here's how I made this, this, and this, all with no budget, a very small team, and only 3 months to do it. And if you stick around to the end, I'll show you how you can do the same too and start your very own web series, or make your very own short film, without spending anything. Like, at all. Okay, so I'm gonna keep this really simple and snappy and break this down into 3 parts. Planning, execution, and editing, and other cool stuff to actually kind of make it look good. And maybe we'll throw in a few bonus tips at the end that'll actually help you to achieve your goals, no matter how ambitious you make them, and actually help you to produce the idea that you've got right now in your head. I know that you've got a really cool idea back there, so don't try and hide it. First, I just want to give you a little bit of context on my project, just because I'm gonna be referencing it loads, but at the same time, I don't want to bore you with this part or make it seem like I'm self-promoting my little web series. So I'm gonna try and shoot through this real quick. The web series that I'm creating is called The Dark Web, and it's a sci-fi dystopian thriller kind of thing set in the year 2091. It takes place in a world where the internet has been shut down, and so society has sort of manifested what used to be the internet into a physical place. However, due to the large amounts of rules and restrictions, some people weren't quite content and decided to create a crime-ridden undergrowth known as the Dark Web. Our protagonist, going by the name of Pseudo, is a lonely kid who is struggling for money and trying to find his mum, who he thinks has been abducted into the Dark Web. By the way, if this actually sounds like something you'd be interested in watching, I've recently released a trailer for it. Links will be in the description, but moving on! Let's get started with planning your project. Say you've got this great idea. Awesome! But how are you going to execute it? First, decide one of 2 things. Is this story you've come up with detailed enough, and does it have enough depth and plot to be made into a multi-episode web series? Or is all the plot fairly compact, let's say? You know, could it be short enough to be a short film? It doesn't really matter what choice you've made for the sake of this video, but it will matter later on when I leave you to go out into the wild and create this giant masterpiece. Okay, so now let's actually talk about that story a little bit. When I was trying to come up with the Dark Web, I knew I had this really cool idea, which was, what if the internet was a physical location? I thought that this idea could have a really cool aesthetic and a really cool vibe, but I couldn't actually think of a story to go with it. Like, there was just no plot there. But one day, I was discussing my idea with a very wise old wizard, whose name I shall not include, so let's just call him Gandalf. And almost immediately after telling him my idea, Gandalf asked me one simple question. Why? Why? And I was like, what do you mean why? And Gandalf says, well, why? Why is the internet a physical location? And I was just kind of like, well, I mean, I don't know. And so that night I went home and I just tried to come up with as many plausible and sometimes non-plausible ideas, because they're very important too sometimes, for the answer to this question. And eventually I landed on the answer of, well, what if the internet in this universe got shut down? And Gandalf still persisted with his one-word question. Why? And it just kept going like that until the story developed into what it is today. Okay, so Hand Chicken, what are you trying to tell me? I hear you cry, and to that I reply with, always ask yourself why. Not just during this part of the process, but during every part of the process. It will not only help you to create a better story, but also help to create just a better production in general. Our little squishy brains like to have a logical answer to stuff, and by thinking of a reason behind everything in your film or show, will help people to understand it and enjoy it more, and therefore make it a better product. Okay, so you have tormented yourself with the question of why, and now you have a good, rich, detailed, and a story with depth. But now let's move on to characters. Who is going to experience this story? And more importantly, okay, go on, you know what I'm gonna ask. Why? What has happened to them to make the story relevant to them? Is it some traumatic past, or is it some kind of other thing? But that kind of segues onto nicely what I was going to talk about next. Giving your character a backstory helps to give your character depth. By that, I mean it helps them to feel more real and grounded within your world. People like characters they can relate to, and to help people relate to characters, make them feel real. So when faced in certain situations, give your characters realistic reactions to those situations. For example, if your character came into contact with a huge spider, think about how you would react in that situation, and then try to inject that into your character just a little bit, whether that's through dialogue or through body language, which can more often than not be just as important, if not more important than dialogue, but that's something I tend to leave up to the actors portraying my character. Also, doubling back on that whole backstory thing, it is so important to keep the bigger picture in mind. Whether you're creating the pilot episode for your web series or your 12-minute short film, it is really important to make sure that you have the rest of the story planned out. This helps to make sure that whatever you're creating ties in with the actual story, and then feels like it's part of something. By episode 1, or by the first scene, you should know what's going to happen in the final episode, or the final scene. This also means that you can do cool stuff like cliffhangers and that. That's the nitty-gritty of story planning. But planning is actually really important too. The Dark Web had just so much planning for it, because the entire thing was shot on a green screen, which kind of meant I had to work double time to make sure that everything for the VFX was ready too for the shoot. But also, you'll definitely run into things like schedules not aligning with your actors and your crew, which means that you need to make sure that all of that is sorted, because when it comes to the shoot day, the more planned you are, the less things that are going to go wrong, and therefore, the better day all of you are going to have. In my case, the biggest problem was that the lead guy who plays Pseudo, Max, he could only come to the studio for one day, and we had to shoot like 15 friggin' scenes. So I had to plan everything to make sure that nothing went wrong on the day, because if I got into the edit and realized I had to reshoot something, guess what? I wouldn't be able to. We managed to do it all in the end, thanks to a very long shot list I put together, which is literally a spreadsheet of every single shot that needed to be taken on the day. It was painstaking, but it totally saved the day. So if you take anything away from this part of the video, it is to literally overthink everything before your day of shooting. This makes sure that you have a plan of exactly how the day is going to go and how you're going to make it go that way. You have now planned everything. Good job. But now you got to shoot it. Now, there really isn't a whole lot to talk about when it comes to shooting without making a whole other video for it. But if you've planned all the different shots that you need to get, then you should be good to go. I know what you're thinking. Hand chicken. I don't got no good camera. All I've got is my phone. And to that I reply, well, use it. The thing that so many beginners, and sometimes not beginners, get wrong is that you need like $1 bazillion cinema camera to make your film look good. Well, that's just not true. It actually all comes down to lighting and composition. No matter what camera you've got, if you've got bad lighting, you're gonna have a bad shot, even if you got Hollywood's best camera. But it also goes vice versa. I filmed the entirety of the live action plates for the Dark Web. Live action plates are the green screen bits, you know, like the actual footage of the actors, with probably one of the cheapest and most amateur cameras. But even then, some shots that I got for B-roll was just taken on my phone. Plus, phone cameras are so good nowadays, especially on the new iPhones where you can shoot log, that you could probably shoot the entire thing on them, if the lighting looks good though. Okay, enough about the lighting. Here are some actual tips to how you achieve that cinematic look. First off, this was the #1 rule that I always use. Shoot into the light. Take a look at any movie or TV show at all, and notice that every time the camera's looking at someone, you're always looking at the side of the person which is in the shadow. By that I mean that whatever they're being lit by will always be on the other side of the camera. This helps to add depth to the shot, and therefore making it cinematic. Oh, and tip #2, have depth. Depth is where you can very clearly distinguish the foreground from the midground and the midground from the background. You can do this using multiple methods, like depth of field, which is a fancy term for what is blurry or out of focus. One method that I really like to use involves the colors of the scene. Try having like opposite colors. So if your foreground is a more cooler color, like blue, try having the background be a more warmer color, like orange, for example. Oh my word, a great example is the classic orange until Hollywood look. Yeah, if you watch any Michael Bay film, you'll be able to see this. He really likes his blues and oranges. I mean, just watch any Transformers film, you'll see. And third tip is motivated lighting. Huge mistake on the Disney Channel shows. Someone please go over there and show them this video, please. Oh, okay, what I mean by this is that, say for example, you got this really stunning red rim light that just catches the edge of your actor's face. But you need to have something in the shot that kind of looks like it's illuminating the actor, even if technically it's not. Remember what I said earlier about our brains? Our little squishy brains like to have a logical answer to stuff. Yeah, goes the same for this. It's still that question of why. Why is it lit like that? Just put anything that makes sense there. It could be a lamp, or in this case a giant wall of TVs that are all red. Anything that is the same color temperature and is a source of light, and which is coming from roughly the same angle as the light, will typically do the trick. Just don't let anyone tell you that you need an expensive camera though to go and make a good looking film. Oh, but what about locations? Dude, just touch grass. You don't need to build a set for stuff. I mean, we did ours on a green screen because we couldn't build a set. And yeah, okay, I get that not everyone watching this video knows how to do visual effects, but no, like, seriously, sometimes the answer is in plain sight. I mean, literally just use what you got. If you need to film an interrogation, for example, all you need is your dining table, one lamp and 2 chairs. The background can be hidden away by the dramatic shadows if you choose to just light the scene with a lamp. I mean, that could actually look really cool. Somebody please do that. And no one would know that you filmed it in the same room you had dinner with your parents in an hour before you shot. Okay, almost there now. So you've got some really cool shots and you're thinking, oh man, this is gonna be so sweet. But you gotta edit them together, and Adobe Premiere Pro costs like $40 a month, and you don't really have that kind of money to spend right now because Hollywood still doesn't know who you are yet. However, you don't need to use Premiere Pro. You don't need these fancy editing programs that everyone uses. Oh no, what if I told you that every editing program actually was the same thing, just with a few different colors? Yeah, all you really need in an editing program is just to cut multiple videos together and export it out. You don't need any fancy transitions unless you want your film to look like it was made by an amateur, which you are not. So any software that can do that, you can use to edit your film. For example, I use DaVinci Resolve, which is a free editing software that isn't sponsored for this video, that you can get on Mac and PC. And personally, as someone who has used Premiere Pro for quite a few projects, I still prefer Resolve. I think it's a lot more powerful, not to mention the fact that the color grading tools, as well as the audio tools, the masking tools, and the 2D tracking tools are all built in. And the fact that I don't get charged like the same price as a mid-range Lego set every month just to use it. But if you don't have a computer, there are so many free apps that you can get on your phone or your tablet. And this sounds super beginner, but trust me when I say that you can make a pretty good edit just by using iMovie on your iPhone or iPad. Yeah, it is basic, but it does the job. CapCut is another great alternative too, and you can get that on Android as well. Just try not to get too excited about all these little bells and whistles. 9 times out of 10, if you're actually trying to make a cinematic piece, you won't need any of them. Here are some little tips for editing though. Make sure that you get rid of fluff. By that, I mean that if there's something in there that isn't necessary to the story, just delete it. Try to be as harsh as you can with your film. One thing I like to do when I'm editing is to just keep rewatching my edit. If there's any moment where I feel an urge to look away or do something else, I know that I need to cut it, whether that's a cutaway or just snipping down the length of a long shot. Audio is also super important. If you've got bad audio, it's gonna ruin your whole thing. Always try and make sure that you are recording audio separately to your video on the day. If you've got like an actual camera but not an external mic, I recommend just using the voice memos app on your phone and sticking your phone close to the actor or in their pocket if you can. That way you're almost guaranteed good audio, because the mic is always going to be in close proximity to whoever is talking. And if you can't do any of these things for whatever reason and you're just recording the audio straight onto your camera, I recommend just trying to stay close to whoever is talking. Don't be afraid to tell your cast to speak up a little too if the audio is too quiet. Now you've got your film, how do you share it with the world? Well, a pretty obvious answer is YouTube. Things like Hackman Hotel and the Amazing Digital Circus have both already proven that you don't need a large studio to get behind your project to make it successful. Both of these shows are very popular and are almost globally known, and they've only aired on YouTube. If your story truly is well thought out and original, and if you've executed your idea well, people will want to watch it. There'll always be an audience for you. You've just got to go out there and do it. Oh yeah, you know how at the beginning of this video I said this? And maybe we'll throw in a few bonus tips at the end that'll actually help you to achieve your goals, no matter how ambitious you make them, and actually help you to produce the idea that you've got right now in your head. I haven't forgotten. So the biggest secret tip that has got me to this point is mindset. Out of all the advice I've given you today, if you remember one thing from this video at all, it is that the most important and definitely the most free tool that will help you to achieve your goal is mindset. Literally just telling yourself not to give up and that you can and will do it. Listen, the truth is, when I started this project, I only had 3 months to do it, because part of it was actually for a college course. And when I told people that I wanted to make a fully CGI 15 to 20 minute pilot episode, almost everyone told me that I couldn't. They said it wasn't practical and I wouldn't be able to make it to the best of my ability, and it wouldn't be good enough. They told me just to focus on maybe one scene for it, or a 90-second trailer or something. But the truth is, I loved the idea I'd come up with, and I loved this world and story that I'd made, and I wanted to share it with the world, not just as a standalone scene or a trailer for something that would never get made. I wanted to make the full pilot episode. Yeah, it was hard. My sleeping schedule was terrible, and for the past couple of months, it has been my life. But that doesn't mean that I haven't enjoyed every second of it, and it also doesn't mean that everyone doubted me. I mean, I know that at least 5 people knew that I would do it, and that I would make it good. And that was my very small team I had. My cast of about 3 people, my 2 audio techs, and my music producer. They all had faith, and they put in as much effort and love that I did. And when I did finish it, when it was better than the doubters, as we should call them, expected it to be, they were actually speechless. They couldn't believe I'd actually done it. They didn't know how I'd done it, and I think the only way I managed to actually pull this off was because I told myself I could, and I told myself I would pull it off, and I had to. And you can do exactly the same. I promise you that if you have a true passion for the story and the production you're creating, I promise you, you will do it, and it will be spectacular. And if you tell yourself that as well, you are guaranteed to make whatever you plan to make. And when you do, please somehow send it to me. Leave a link in the comments or something, because I would really love to see what you create. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped a little bit, and if you're still interested in the dark web, go check out the trailer. And YouTube tells me to tell my viewers to subscribe, but you know, I'll leave that choice up to you. Yeah, anyways, have a good day.